10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
A Boy and His Dog, rated R, from LQ Jeff.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to that 70s Rock Fan channel. It's so good to see you all here today as we travel to the future of 2024. We are indeed back into the future today, and we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies, one of my formative science fiction movies.
But when will now be then?
Yes, well, when will this time is now? I would say.
But when will then be now?
When will it be now? When will it be? So, Boy and His Dog, this 1975 dystopian post-apocalyptic black comedy may have been made on a shoestring budget and ended up potentially in the public domain. There's a lot of debate about whether it is or it isn't. But it's one of the sharpest science fiction movies of the 1970s and hugely influential. So get your popcorn, because there's popcorn in the movie. Grab your popcorn, dim the lights, and prepare to embark on a mission to 2024, where we're going to uncover the mysteries of this little gem of a movie together. So thank you for joining us. Last science fiction movie we covered a few weeks ago was Colossus, the Forbidden Project, which has turned out to be hugely successful for my channel, gathering something like 1,600 views. So maybe there is a market for obscure 1970s science fiction. I certainly hope so. So I would like to welcome to the show today, before we get started, first of all, my good friend and regular panelist, Pope Metallicus the First. How are you, buddy?
Doing great, man. And kind of excited to be talking about this movie because I never knew it influenced half of the things I ended up, growing up with, like Fallout or, a couple other things.
Yeah.
And I'd never actually seen this until we were doing the episode. It's an interesting one.
Oh, yeah. Interesting little movie. Well made, I think, given the budget. So I'm very glad you could join me to experience this event. But also with us today is a special guest, a man who knows everything there is to know about science fiction. At least I've never found anything that he didn't know yet. It's my great friend Jason from SciFi4Me TV.
Howdy.
Thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thanks for inviting me. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a preview on talking about it on was it Culture After Dark? I think we were talking a bit about it.
Yeah.
And Harlan Ellison, who's was a colorful character, to say the least. So I'm looking forward very much to your insight, and you'll keep me right on the facts, because being old, facts tend to elude me a lot these days.
I'm 54, so I'm not a spring chicken. So.
You're just a child compared to me. But anyway, welcome to everyone out there on YouTube and on Rumble, watching on both of these platforms, and somewhere on Twitter as well. I'm pretty sure we're going out there somewhere. Excuse me. Whether anybody ever watches it on there or not, I have no idea. So let's see who we've got in the house already today. And I do thank you all for being here and for your continued support, which sees us gradually, the channel creeps up in subs. And we're doing, for such a low effort human like myself, we're doing pretty well, I think. So so we have FKHC 2005. Good to see you, buddy. We have Davina Duckworth, who will also keep us right on the facts. Mentioning Bioshock there, which I'd forgotten about. There may well be some Bioshock influence. Lord Thoth, a man who knows what it's like to live in dystopia, like me in Canada.
Canada.
Good to see you, my friend. One man show. Great to see you. Thanks for being here, buddy. Also, equally, Thomason, thanks for being here, my friend. The great and wonderful D. Bud Martin, does such a wonderful modding and wrenching job here, along with obviously Davina and Lord Thoth. But D. Bud, thank you. You're the engine, the little engine that could on the show. Waiting for the sequel, A Man and His Sheep. Just to ram, you had to ram that home, didn't you? You had to ram that joke home. GR is here. Good to see you. And if I miss anybody, don't worry. We will be checking in on you throughout the show. Avon lives. He does. That's true. D-Bud says, between Fallout and GTA Vice City, did Todd Johnson inspire the most video games? Boy, I never thought of that.
Maybe.
But yes, thanks everyone for being here. We do have another guest joining us. It is the wonderful Mark D with the C.
Hello. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Mark.
Great hanging out.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, great hanging out with you last night, 70s. We hijacked the conversation to talk lots of Beatles and how
I crashed
not
your
overrated
stream.
they are.
I crashed your stream to talk Beatles, yes, for some reason. So I think we were both offended by what the new Who is doing, daring to try and feature a simulation of the Beatles on the show. But well, thanks for being here, mate. I mean, how familiar are you with this movie?
I just watched it again. If you're asking me, sorry.
Yes, asking you. I'm going to ask everybody, but I'm asking you first.
I just watched it again today, and I think it would work for Toxic Tuesday as well. Wow, this is quite a story that might not be made in the exact same way today. But it's we'll get into it. But it's very interesting, shall we say?
Oh yeah, it's an interesting experience. Jason, what is this a movie you saw back in the day or only recently? It was hard to get for a while.
Actually, this weekend was my first time seeing it. It's been on my list of things to watch for a long while. And you hear about it for cult classic and Don Johnson and all of this. And I was like, I had it just out there in the periphery. But it wasn't something that I had gotten to until we started talking about, when you invited me to come on here. I was like, well, okay, this is my chance to actually get to see it and sit and watch it. And so I watched it over the weekend, and Mrs. Boss watched it with me up until she was about an hour in and decided that it wasn't for her. So
it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
It was not what I expected, but we get into that a little bit. So, but I'm glad I finally watched it. I can cross it off my list.
Yeah, exactly. And Pope, I think, were you pretty much the same, or did you see it back in the day?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have been born for another 12 years when this movie came out, but I never saw it. I'd seen clips of it, as it turns out, but I'd never seen the whole thing until we started doing research for this show. But I've played a lot of the stuff that was influenced by it, from all the Mad Max stuff, Fallout, all of it. So it was really kind of interesting to see where all that came from initially.
Sure, no, it has had a big influence. We're definitely going to talk about that. As for me, I mean, I was familiar with the novella long before I'd seen the movie. Because the movie wasn't generally released, even in North America. It didn't get a wide general release. It certainly didn't get released in the UK, to the best of my knowledge. And I probably wouldn't have got in anyway. I would have been too young. So I didn't see it until the VHS era. Saw a copy in the early 80s. But I've always admired it ever since. So looking forward to talking about this. So yeah, I'd forgotten that it was set in the year 2024. A future you'll probably live to see, and they were right. We did live to see it,
and we're not that far from how desolate things are, I guess, right now, are we?
Yeah, I mean, we're only slightly worse than they depicted it.
Right.
It's beginning to look like we're leaning that way again with the post-nuclear apocalypse scenario.
The funny part is living near Washington D.C. and having played through Fallout 3, the DC Metro doesn't change from now until like 2277. There's still all sorts of things chasing you and trying to eat you.
Yeah, indeed.
The funny thing is, you look at a lot of these, not just Boy and His Dog, but a lot of these movies that were made during the Cold War. And the assumption has always been nuclear war and what we have to do afterwards. And having gotten to this point now where we're looking at the possibility of World War III, Civil War II, another Summer of Love, and that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, it wasn't going to be nuclear war that got us. It was going to be ourselves, and just the stupid back and forth. Who knew that social media would fuel the apocalypse, right?
That's right. Yeah.
We brought the world together, and as it turns out, we don't like each other very much.
That's right. The apocalypse is back on the menu, boys.
All the sequels to the movies we never wanted.
Yeah.
Civil War II, World War III, Cold War II.
It's a great point, though, Jason, that a large number of 70s movies were obsessed with the nuclear apocalypse, and they never saw an end to the Cold War, particularly. Right. So it's.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you look back to the 90s, this movie would have seemed much more far-fetched when we were living in the quote-unquote era of peace, and the Soviet Union had disbanded, and they were the big bad in the 70s that all these movies were envisioning, and of course, for good reason too. But then we had relative, you could say relative peace, and but now, with what's going on in the world, it's not all that far-fetched. Unfortunately,
no more perestroika.
Indeed. Right. Yes, perestroika. I remember that was all the rage.
As the great philosopher said, peace sells, but who's buying?
That's right. Yeah. So, based on the 1969 Harlan Ellison novella, and it's in an alternative timeline, which we'll talk about a little bit, which diverges, I think, around the assassination of Kennedy. I think he lives in in this world, and things change after that. From our timeline, cost $400,000 to make, and limited release probably made about. They reckon there's a guess that it maybe made $1 million in box office, and there's been some sales, obviously, of physical media since. Harlan Ellison said he never made any money on the movie, so I can believe that. I can believe that, yeah. But yeah, not a bad effort though when you look at it. It's pretty good.
For what this movie cost, it looks very, very good.
It does. I do like this German poster. 2024 is emphasized. Which I think is again, I'd forgotten it was based in set in 2024. Apocalypse, the French poster, Apocalypse 2024, which I think is a great title.
French to be over dramatic.
So you could retitle this now Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Well, because you also had the original Buck Rogers novel was Armageddon 2419. So this Apocalypse, Armageddon, Apocalypse Now, all of these different Armageddon disaster things, that these were popular terms, and of course they all start with an A, so they're going to be alphabetically ahead of all of the other stuff.
Yeah, they should have called it A Apocalypse Now. It would have been right at the beginning. So there is an explanation in the movie of the timeline. I'm just going to see if I can get this to play properly.
Let's see. From March 1953 Did you?
No, Albert, you have all the cranial capacity of a canary. Now, I'm going to recount these events of historical significance once again. Now, please try to assimilate them this time. World War III, hot and cold, lasted from June 1950 to March 1983, when the Vatican Armistice was signed between the Eastern and Western blocs, a total of 33 years. Is this too fast for you?
No, I'm right with you.
Oh, good.
I do like the settings that they use for this in the Southwest, but everything's buried.
Now,
Everything's
World
buried, I
War
guess,
IV
right?
lasted 5 days, just long enough for the final missiles to leave their silos on both sides. And what's left here where once were homes and families and warm hearths.
Come on, Pete. Get off my back, you mad dog.
Yeah, so that's a kind of little bit of an explanation for the timeline.
Would that have been, I guess, started with Korea then?
Yeah.
Yes.
The kickoff for all of that?
I think it's counting the kind of that and the fight, the building of the Berlin Wall in the 1950, I think, as the start of the Cold War. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they never
1950
say
was
directly.
about the Berlin airlift, the start of the Korean War. So when things really started heating up.
Yeah. So, but this the Vatican Accords, I think, I don't think that actually happened. So you can tell the diversion of.
It did to an extent. Like basically, the Pope negotiated a bunch of settlements, mostly around the exit of a lot of the Warsaw Pact nations into their own nation states in the late 80s. Because John Paul II obviously was Polish, so he could kind of intermediate on behalf of the Poles. And had enough clout that the Russians would listen to him.
I always thought John Paul should have had a corresponding second Pope, George Ringo. But anyway, Harlan Ellison, the writer.
That'll be 10 Hail Marys. That'll be 10 Hail Marys.
That's right, yeah. No, I'm doing my penance already by supporting the Dallas Stars. That's my penance. It's like flagellation. So, yeah, Harlan Ellison, prolific science fiction and other material writer under various names as well. 1969 novella, which I think Michael Moorcock published originally. And then it wasn't the greatest novel writer, I don't think, Jason Harlan Ellison. He was more of a short story and TV.
Yeah. Well, the TV stuff, not as much, but yeah, short stories and novellas were his big thing. His biggest one, of course, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Yes.
Yep.
And of course, he's known for The City on the Edge of Forever, which the episode is not anything like what he wrote.
No.
The graphic, there's a graphic novel. Yeah, that one that IDW did. That one takes his original script.
Yeah.
And he was constantly complaining about Gene Roddenberry rewriting him, but Roddenberry did it in order to bring the script into the format of the show, because this was first season and there wasn't a Star Trek before. No. So the writers didn't have very much in the way of a show Bible or any kind of a track record, anything to reference. Yeah. So they were writing stuff, and then
they did have the writers Bible, and that story did not.
But the show kept evolving throughout that first season. You know, the United Earth Space Probe Agency became Starfleet, and the fact that there were 12 ships, and is it the Constitution class or is it the Starship class? All of these different things that they didn't settle in until into the first season, but all of these scripts had already been written. So Roddenberry's coming back in on the back end of it, just kind of cleaning everything up. And City on the Edge of Forever is considered one of the best episodes of the original Star Trek.
It is. It's a brilliant episode. In my opinion.
You don't get that without Harlan Ellison's original story.
So, and he accepted the was it the Nebula Award or the Hugo Award?
He got a Hugo.
Hugo.
Yeah, Hugo. Yeah, he accepted it too. But, so I mean, that story did not fit. A lot of it did not fit in the Star Trek universe. You can't have a Roddenberry didn't want a drug dealer on the Enterprise. So, and it actually, he made it a lot more filmable. So it turned out, like, as you said, the story, there's a lot of, the story there. I've read both the graphic novel and watched that episode a gazillion times, but that's what happens when you translate to TV or movies. You got to change things to make them filmable.
Sure, but I don't want to get too bogged down in Star Trek, given we're going to talk about Boy and His Dog. But yeah, City on the Edge of Forever is a classic. But he did write more stories set in the Vic and Blood world, including eventually one where Vic isn't in that world, and Spike, somebody called Spike is. And these were eventually collected together. There was plans, I think, Jason, we talked about this, plans for a TV show at one point and talks of sequels and new versions. Nothing ever really came of it.
Thinking about this, I'm wondering how much of what would turn into the Metro series of books came from this concept as well. I don't know how.
Well, it's another good point, because I'd not really. I know that the Metro stuff is more from Stalker, I think, is a little bit more influential in it, but there's always an element.
It's the same developer that did Stalker, but they're based on a series of novels by a Russian author. I can never pronounce his name.
I know, I can't either, but I have read some of the English translations. But I think there's influence there, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But we shouldn't forget Harlan Ellison's crowning achievement was writing an episode of The Flying Nun, of course.
Great Sally Field.
The great Sally Field, yes. So he was fairly prolific, and he had A Boy and His Dog. He talked in interviews that had been Universal and others had tried to make it. Nothing had ever happened. He didn't want them to make certain changes, and he became friends with this guy L.Q. Jones, who was born Justice McQueen. What a great name, Justice McQueen in Texas. Passed away 2022. Director, screenwriter of this movie. He bought the rights and became friends with Harlan Ellison. And he acts in the porno movie in the movie. He's one of the actors in the porno. Prolific character actor, L.Q. Jones, on movies and TV. Sam Peckinpah had him in a lot of his movies. He was in tons of television. Stuff like Lone Wolf McQuaid as well. Here he is with Elvis in something. But a man you would recognize from seeing in lots and lots of stuff right from the 50s onwards. Very prolific. And I don't know how he got interested in this property, but he ended up with the rights and got a bunch of friends together, raised the money from family and friends, and finally got this made when apparently large studios couldn't. So but L.Q. Jones is certainly films like The Ballad of Cable Hogue, other Sam Peckinpah movies. He's one of his stock actors. You'll see him in all those movies. He had quite the life, Mr. L.Q. Jones, I believe. And he produced a couple of low-budget horror movies as well. So he was a little bit of a directorial and production background. But it wasn't the guy you would have picked to say, I'm going to make this weird science fiction movie. But there you go.
Then Elvis to be in it.
Well, he should have got Elvis to be in it. That would have been hilarious. He ended up with Tim McIntyre, who played the theme music or some of the music. So and he was in Elvis movies too. But Vic, or Albert, as he's sometimes referred to by Blood, of course, played by Don Johnson, a young Don Johnson, pre-Miami Vice, pre-Fame.
Very young Don Johnson.
Yeah. I think I never got the Albert reference.
Yeah, what was that from? Is that maybe his real name? Anybody like Vic? Or?
No, it's something to do with popular dog breeder and novelist Alfred Payson Terhune, who
there's a line. Yeah, there's a line in the movie that references why he calls him Albert.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it is now.
And it's old stories that this guy wrote that were popular, about wholesome stories about boys and their dogs, because this is a twist on all of that.
I always thought it was because Vic wasn't very bright, so he would call him Albert, and then Einstein.
I thought it was to do with the Victoria and Albert, but apparently it wasn't. So Don Johnson, of course, as we all know, became super famous for rolling his sleeves up a lot in Miami Vice. He had a little bit of a reputation for playing fast and loose with some of his roles. Here he's in an earlier all-nude, and there's Mad Martigan saving the day.
How much popped up on this channel?
So he wasn't a stranger to nudity in his earlier career. But luckily, Mad was there to save the day. So Don Johnson,
Thank God.
I think, is really good in this. I've always liked him in this. He's just got that kind of nice. He's young enough to be convincing as this young guy. I mean, you couldn't have done it later. He was too smooth later. Although The Hotspot's a great movie. If you ever see The Hotspot movie,
And isn't that Virginia Madsen in that with him?
yes,
Yeah,
great movie. So,
by the way, Edgar Albert Guest is who
Okay.
we're talking about. He wrote the original poem "A Boy and His Dog,"
there you go.
okay.
and a collection of poetry based around that. So,
So The Hotspot with Virginia Madsen, yeah.
oh, Jennifer Connelly's in it. I
And
forgot.
Jennifer Connelly. And he'd beefed up a bit by this time. So I don't know. I don't know what women see in him. I really don't get it.
I mean, I might have said smoking. I was referring to Jennifer Connelly, just in case anyone was.
Sure. There and Heartbeat, of course. He had a parallel music career, but back in '75, he was still a struggling indie movie actor, and I really like his performance in A Boy and His Dog. It's really good.
I think part of his appeal is he's kind of rough around the edges, Han Solo type. You know, Han Solo, Malcolm Reynolds. He's not an anti-hero, but he's not the golden boy. You know,
No.
he's a bit of a rogue, a rule breaker.
He is, and there's certain themes in this movie around loyalty and morals and where his loyalties lie. He's not a good guy or a bad guy. He's just a survivor, but he has certain traits that become apparent, and some of them are pretty good in the end.
He has a code.
He has a code.
Yeah, in terms of morals, he especially given the world that he apparently grew up in. Because if this is 2024 and he's about what 18 or 20,
I think he might be a little older in A Boy and His Dog. He's probably more like mid-20s.
But this is the world he grew up in, so he didn't know the world pre-war. So it's kind of he's not a complete asshole in a world where everyone is.
Although he's horny as hell.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Food and women are the two things that concern him. But he's also
in the apocalypse. I think that would probably be your two biggest concerns.
Right. And unlike some people in the movie, as we'll talk about, we go through the stills later. He can read. He isn't dumb, so
Yeah, he can read. Yeah. Is that maybe the dog? Maybe Blood taught him to read.
Possibly.
Is that Blood? Is that the same dog?
So this is apparently the same dog. In the Tiger was the name of the dog, and he actually calls him Tiger in the movie at one point. Tiger was known for being one of the dogs playing Tiger in the Brady Bunch.
Wow.
This may be the same
what
one.
happened to Bobby
Here
Brady.
Here he is with the young Spock. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. And I think the planned sequel was scrapped because Tiger had passed away.
That's right. Yeah. But Blood, it's interesting because he's telepathic, but he's only telepathic as far as we know with Vic. He's lost the ability to smell food, but he can smell women. And he has a kind of a radar that you're pinging. So that part of it is interesting, why those developments have happened. I think, as far as I'm aware, that the alternative world it's in, they had experimented with those things before the apocalypse. So they had concentrated on developing stuff like that. So maybe that was not a thing to do with the nuclear war, but it happened before anyway.
Was that when you heard the dinging in the movie? Like, was that
Yes.
like Blood's radar? Like the lady check or the lady scan?
He's scanning for babes.
But yeah, their relationship is obviously core of the movie, and they're tight. They're very tight. It's a great relationship, and the dog is wonderfully trained. Blood is great. I mean, some of the things he does in the movie, like picking up rifles and dragging them away and whatever, it's great training. The voice was done by Tim McIntyre, who does some of the music as well. Great. He was a friend of L.Q. Jones. He actually played Alan Freed in American Hot Wax, which, if you've ever seen, is a great movie. He also played George Jones in Stand By Your Man. So he's a pretty good, well-known character actor.
He kind of looks like Merlin Olsen.
He does. This is in Kung Fu, the show Kung Fu.
Oh, okay.
Also, here he is with Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan's having something put in his mouth. We're not quite sure what it is.
Not marijuana.
So another well-known guy, a friend of LQ Jones. We've been in a lot of movies together, so on TV. So he did the voice. Also in the movie, of course, is playing Quilla June Holmes is Suzanne Benton, who I can't.
Being very tasty.
She is, but we'll save that surprise for those who've never seen the movie till the end. This movie does feature one of the most shocking final lines in a movie ever in movie history, most celebrated.
But not by Harlan Ellison.
But not by Harlan Ellison. We'll talk about that as well. Suzanne Benton, Canadian actress, best known for this movie. Also, she was in Catch-22, did a bunch of TV, did a Playboy spread, and then retired pretty early and lived in relative obscurity. I guess she met the right guy and got out of the business. She had her good points. Suzanne Benton, and playing Quilla June Holmes, who's a shifty character, indeed. But also in the movie, Lou Craddock, who runs Topeka and the committee in Topeka, is played by Jason Robards, the best known name by far in the movie. Oscar winner, celebrated stage, movie, and TV actor. Passed away in the year 2000. He'd worked with LQ Jones a few times, and like The Ballad of Cable Hogue and some other movies. So I guess they knew each other, and LQ persuaded him to come on as a special appearance. And he certainly is very effective in the time he's in the movie. So fairly big name to land at the time. And then another, it's a fairly unknown cast, but here he is in with Stella Stevens, I think it is, in The Ballad of Cable Hogue. Terrible cast. I mean, what a horrible job as an actor. The conditions on this movie must have been hell.
Grueling.
I mean,
Grueling.
I had to reshoot this scene at least 10, 15 times.
That's right. Grueling stuff. Acting is hell. It really is.
It can be. Yeah.
But also in the movie is another friend of, and here he is in it's Ballad of Cable Hogue, which had a great cast. Fabulous cast. Great movie if you ever see it. Sam Peckinpah, one of the greats, of course. Alvy Moore is also one of the committee, plays Dr. Moore down the Topeka sections. Another friend of LQ Jones, good friend of his, friend of Jason Robards, played Hank Kimball in Green Acres, which kind of makes the Topeka parts seem a little even creepier.
Right.
Because he's kind of parodying the whole Americana that Topeka is trying to preserve.
Yeah.
But great. I mean, like many of his actors of his era, he fought in Iwo Jima. He was in the U.S. Marine Corps, which is why some of his early movies were army based. And so great guy. Plays the doctor in this, and I mean, we'll see the stills as we go through them, that particular visual identity that they gave the dwellers in that vault. And it's a vault.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very creepy.
All out.
So just a couple of other things. The cinematographer was a guy called John Morrill, who didn't do a great deal of other stuff because it was a pretty, a lot of less well-known people to keep the cost down. Friends of LQ's doing a lot of the job. The cinematography was John Morrill, who did make this film The Dark, which if you've ever seen is batshit crazy. Started out being a serial killer movie, and then they realized after, because it's 79, they realized the aliens were becoming popular, so they made it an alien instead of a serial killer, a human serial killer. So it's a kind of an uneven movie in that sense. That's a movie he did work on. Editing was done by Scott Conrad, who won an Oscar for Rocky, amongst many other things that he edited. Very, very well-known editor. But one of my favorites of his that he edited was Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
Molly Ringwald. Wow.
Yeah, who could not like this movie?
That's an old movie.
It's an old
Look
movie.
at the cast though: Molly Ringwald, Ernie Hudson, Michael Ironside.
That's
Wow.
right.
Wow.
Yeah. Edited
Well,
though by
And Elmer Bernstein doing the music on this one.
yeah, an Ivan Reitman production.
You would
wow,
think you would think that this movie would have been a huge success.
It was supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
We're definitely going to talk about it on this show at some point. The music, funnily enough, sorry, I'm going to go back from that. Funnily enough, I don't think there was ever an official soundtrack album released. Tim McIntyre did a lot of the music, the country sound and stuff. He had a career as a musician as well. Ray Manzarek was somewhere on the score. Ray Manzarek, The Doors, and a Brazilian guy called Jamie Mendoza Nava, who was a friend of LQ Jones, who did a lot of esoteric soundtracks over the years. So I don't think I've ever seen an album release of it ever. So, you know, again, it was a pretty scraped together thing. Just before we continue, Darius Munchausen, who should be on the show here. What are you doing, Darius? Get on the show. $3 super chat from Darius. Thank you, my friend. Hands doing the sign of the horns with sparkles around. Thank you, Darius. And for you, we have to give you a video. So one of the influences of this movie was on South Park, and one particular episode of South Park.
Well, then, I guess we should start repopulating the Earth, huh? I'm ready whenever you are.
Butters, of course, who Cartman persuades is the only survivor of a nuclear apocalypse. Great episode. So influence, yeah, we talked about a lot of the influences. One of the clear influences is in Fallout, in the whole Fallout series. I haven't seen the new show yet, but apparently this is a reference to A Boy and His Dog. And it should be, because Fallout wouldn't be Fallout without A Boy and His Dog, I don't think. The look and the feel, the idea of vaults, the different gangs, raiders, screamers, whatever.
Yeah.
Dog meat, in Fallout.
And that's the actor who's, if you go back to the poster, that's the actor. Yeah, who's Cooper Howard in since you haven't seen the series, he plays Cooper Howard, which is a pretty cool. And during the show, that's not a spoiler, but he ends up walking out of the dog in a lot of scenes, and it's just like that. You just can't help but flash back to that.
Yeah. So that's one obvious nod to, dog meat in Fallout, and the Fallout New Vegas setting in particular is just a boy and his dog in a game, basically, in my opinion.
Pretty much. And kind of New Vegas was always to me like the Fallout 3 that should have been, because it continues where the first two games were.
Yeah, I think so. And so a huge debt to be paid to this movie, the look and feel of it, and some of the wacky stuff. I mean, and the sets in the movie some of them are almost replicated exactly in Fallout and Vegas.
And certainly some of the sense of humor in especially the early Fallout games definitely comes from here. That kind of dark, really fucked up sense of humor some of the early games have. Yeah. That comes right out of this movie.
Oh yeah. The wackiness and the twisted stuff. George Miller cited the movie as a big influence, particularly on The Road Warrior. You can see it in The Road Warrior, and some of the scenes in A Boy and His Dog, which we're going to see, there's parallels in The Road Warrior too. Obviously, Road Warrior took it to the extreme with some of the characters, but the Book of Eli, is also influenced right to the extent that they have the poster of A Boy and a Dog in the movie. Boy and His Dog is in the movie, so a nice nod by them to what is a very interesting film, which we're going to take a look at in a minute with some stills. I have some clips too. So let me just get that off the screen, get it off. And let's just start walking through the movie, and we can talk about all sorts of stuff we like then. So, yeah. Public domain. It's interesting. There's copies of the movie on YouTube, and there's a lot of argument online about whether it's in public domain or not. Some people claim it is, some that isn't. They claim the original copyright notices on the original release were wrong. So, but they also claim that there's a slightly later version with a few minutes of extra footage, which LQ Jones properly applied for copyright for. So, whatever, you can see the movie for free all over the place. And I guess no one significantly left alive connected cares enough to challenge it. So, but it means you can see it for free. You can buy physical copies, of course, of the movie and digital copies. But I'm not saying everyone shouldn't do that. But I like the setting, Southwest US. I think it's meant to be Arizona.
Yeah, they mentioned Phoenix.
Yeah,
it was shot in California, but yeah, it's what's left of Phoenix.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, the war caused huge buildup of material on top of the houses. You see the tops of telegraph poles. You see a lot of people digging down to get to stuff, and of course the vaults down underground, whatever they call them. So it opens with Vic indulging in his passion of looking for women.
It's been 6 weeks. You've eaten many more times than that.
That's right. Yeah, food is important, but yeah, the women are also important, and he gets there a little too late in this scene. Unfortunately, we can't show some of that stuff.
And he's got some horrendous dialogue in there too about how blank she would have been okay if they didn't cut her.
Yeah,
it's just his worldview is just so twisted. It's really depraved, but somehow he ends up still being a likable character.
He does. It's interesting because we talked, and we're going to talk more about the final line in the movie, which Harlan Ellison hated because he said it was misogynistic. Wasn't he watching the rest of the movie? Because the entire premise of the movie is pretty much solo guys and packs of people searching for food and women and not doing nice things when they
well, he was also one of our friends calls him the boob grabber because as he was accepting an award, he fondles someone, the person giving an award on the stage. The clip is on. You can see that it's either one of the Saturn Awards. So he was not in some ways. Maybe this is
he was a little shit in some ways.
Ellison was a character. There's no question about it.
Shit disturber, like many little guys. He was a shit disturber. Joe is not obviously. Joe is in Nolens today, meeting up with our great friend Christian.
Awesome.
Delorme. So as Joe has sent a $4.99 super chat. We miss you, buddy, and we'll see you obviously next week. Hate I missed this one. Just checked into the Bourbon Orleans. Foxy and I will be hooking up with Christian Delorme and Mel Fort dinner soon. Hail to you, and give our best wishes to our great friend Christian. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat, buddy. Really appreciate it. Keeps the lights on here. I think for that you deserve another clip.
Hello?
Ah! Who are you? Are you infected?
With what?
You're not a cannibal, are you?
No.
Oh, good. You're a survivor like me. Look, Mr. Dog, another survivor. And it's a lady, too. That means we can repopulate the Earth. Yippee!
Good old Butters. I think it was what was it? Cartman was he wanted to go on Kyle's birthday party to Casa Bonita or something. I don't know. It's a great episode, but definitely pays nod to Wayne's dog. But yeah, back to the movie. So so Vic is a solo. There's solo guys. There's other groups though. There's groups of raiders. There's the screamers, which you hear. I don't know if we ever really see the screamers.
We don't ever see them.
No, we don't see them.
How they're explained almost makes them sound like the ghouls.
Yeah, they're a bit like ghouls, and I think that's the implication, is that they are pretty mutated or something.
Yeah, because then does he say if you touch you, they touch you, you're a goner?
Yeah,
kind of like the ghouls, I guess.
You're a gonorrhea.
that could be part of it. Sure.
Yeah.
I wonder where he gets his ammunition, though.
I mean, this is it. Everything has to be scavenged.
Yeah.
So ammunition would be one of those things. He seems to have quite a bit of it. I guess when you see them fighting in where he finds Quilla June and he fights that gang off, I mean, he's getting a lot of ammunition and weapons from those guys getting dropped. So
yeah.
Why did they leave the AR-15 behind? That's something that always bugs me in movies. But
yeah, I know.
They grab more weapons.
So as a precursor,
Michael, when he leaves the M16 just sitting right there.
Yeah. So you got the solos, the rover packs, the screamers, and we've got those that live down under. And we see a first taste of these, glimpse of these mysterious people who are watching our hero. And they're watching him getting up to stuff. And they don't reveal who these people are yet, but they're certainly keeping an eye on our boy. In fact, I do have a little bit of a clip which reveals something of what they're up to do. This is them talking about putting out the cheese.
Might work. We'll wait like we always do.
To hell with waiting.
Rick, come back here.
Get away from me! Help! Help! He's taking our thing!
Hold his damn dumb head up there out of the hole. Get back down in here, you idiots! Get back in here! Let him go! Oh, shut up! Keep running. PC's got some guts. Now dig in there. Get out of there and guard that wagon. Run, boy! Come back anytime, though. Dig, you suckers! That's our boy. Put out the cheese.
I like that. Put out the cheese. Put out the cheese. We find out what the cheese is because I actually love that sequence. You see the digger guy. So his skill apparently is identifying where houses are underneath, and he just gets everyone to dig down to them. And there's a touch of the Road Warrior in that. I mean, the guy's an outrageous character. And even Vic says, well, why would anybody follow that guy? You know, he's like, and he's got a guy on a rope that's playing the guitar, and he pulls the rope and he starts to play it.
That whole sequence where you see that guy, the contraption that they're on, that vehicle that's being pulled by a bunch of people with ropes and being pushed from behind it's like it doesn't even have an engine. It's people power. It's Flintstones vehicle.
That's right. Yeah.
And my first I was, oh, this looks like Mad Max. Hey, wait a minute. You know, because I knew this came out first. And
like,
doing the research on it, they're saying, it influenced Mad Max, it influenced Fallout. I was like, oh, okay, well now that makes a whole lot of sense.
It's more like sort of slightly insane Max than Mad Max. It's not quite all the way. It's not the full Max, but yeah, look, it's just pulled along by them. But it's still the idea is there, I think, and it does show that there's groups of people doing nothing but going around looking for houses buried so they can break in and find stuff. Everything of value is down.
It's almost like A Boy and His Dog is the first stage Pokemon before evolving into the other stuff. You know,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, that's how a lot of these concepts work in science fiction, where one guy will kind of come up with a rough idea or concept, and then a whole bunch of other people will iterate on it down through the decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the first movie like that. I mean, you had Planet of the Apes, and what was it, 68, and then you had Soylent Green, I think was the same year. But is this kind of the first, roam around the apocalypse? Damnation Alley was later, wasn't it, with George Peppard? And
I think that was maybe later. This is the first one I can I mean, there must have been others, I'm sure, but it's the first one I think that portrayed it quite like this.
Yeah, because before that, I mean, science fiction, you had 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1969, and science fiction was all that direction. The post-apocalyptic stuff didn't happen. I can't think of anything older than this one.
I can't either.
Just right off the top of my head, I'd have to research.
Yeah.
I don't know that there was.
No,
unless
Planet of the Apes, but it's not really. It's not really that dystopian.
Not particularly, because it's set so far forward from the event.
Yeah.
I think maybe like you had things like Neville shoots on the beach, but they were post-apocalypse, but they were still showing normal society waiting for their doom rather than the post-apocalyptic scenario. So,
maybe Soylent Green, and then, but that's kind of
it's not like this at all, though.
Not like this. There's still a functioning society, although the clip.
I'm pretty sure nothing looked like this per se. Now the Omega Man GR's mentioning.
Omega Man, yeah.
There's some similarities. Different cause, of course. So physically, everything's intact in the Omega Man. It's just the people that were wiped out or turned into monsters. This one's. I don't think anything looked like this before that I can think of. Well, I love this where he goes into the place and the guy can't read. Peaches. Millions of peaches. So they got all the food. They were satiated with that. And they said, let's go to I think it's called the turf, because there's movies there and they can get a shower and there's popcorn and stuff. So it's kind of like the accepted meeting point in the wasteland, maybe like a trading post in Fallout New Vegas or something, you have to pay to get in. You have to park your weapons as well. You're not allowed to carry your weapon around inside, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's like neutral territory.
Yeah. So I have another little video of that. I just love the look of this place. It's so Fallout.
They need to bring back the drive-in theater, right?
Yeah. And of course, the only movies they appear to have are porn movies.
That's good.
Only the true classics need to survive.
They're getting wet there. Move
Yeah,
over.
the true classic.
Goes to rust fast.
Move on along. Grabbing toad, you move my stuff over.
Move his heat. We don't want no trouble tonight.
So he's he may be young, but he's pretty good at defending his shit.
Well, it's like all the different in the world.
This is what New Jersey looked like. Well, it's the same. People can't read in New Jersey.
Sure. The design is great too. I mean, not a lot of budget.
Yeah, I mean, for a cheap movie, it looks good and it's lit well and filmed really well.
He ain't no mutt. You want to see the movies or don't you?
And they use the shadows to great effect too on their face and half the shade.
Peaches.
Yeah, sucker.
How the hell am I supposed to know that? You can read, can't you?
So it does tell us a lot, though, in this scene. It's
you're not going to keep going? Just kidding.
I mean, it's maybe I've just hidden the wrong one. Oh no, there we go. So it tells us that a lot of people can't read, but our boy can. That there are places that people can go that are kind of neutral, and you can kind of have a little bit of safety in it. And I'll have this line. I hope the next time you play with yourself, you go blind. Because the whole telepathy thing between the two is established right from the beginning. So, but the cheese is out there somewhere. I know he won't buy blood any popcorn. He's pissed off he won't buy popcorn. But yeah, beets are okay. So yeah. We're certainly seeing the bond between Vic and Blood. I love the fact it looks like a part of the Sgt. Pepper's cover there. That guy.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is how smart the dog is too. You wonder what the dog's IQ is and why, the dog is making fun of Albert/Vic for being, not as smart or not knowing the history. So he's always telling, the boy his history, which is a great mechanism to tell everyone what's happening in the world as a viewer. You get some things explained that way. But
this is interesting, Mark, in that he said there's not another dog in the joint, so there must be more dogs that have the abilities that Blood has got.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not just him. He's not unique.
Well, it's funny you talk about, history being a teacher. That's a little bit of social commentary there that's kind of subtle, that digs in underneath that, post-apocalyptic nuclear war thing, but in the broadest sense of the thought, history being a teacher, we ought to be paying attention to our history. As we're finding out now.
Yes.
We should be paying attention to what happened back in the 1930s and the 1940s and other times where we're basically starting to repeat a few things that we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, if you don't remember history, you're doomed to repeat it. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, Blood's not unique, although I'm not sure we see too many. I don't think we see any other pairings.
Well, you do see the one other dog that attacks in the bunker. You wonder if that dog was in the very beginning. But you don't. I'm assuming that was an intelligent dog. That he had sniffed out the girl, the cheese, so to speak, in the bunker, or not the bunker planet.
I like Brian's theory that this was probably some kind of an experiment that happened pre-World War IV.
I think it is. I think apparently when the timelines diverged, the timeline of this world, they didn't concentrate on things like the space race. They concentrated on animal intelligence, telepathy, and robotics advances. They didn't do stuff like space race or whatever. So I think the telepathy had been created somehow, and then the war happened, of course. So I like this set. This is a great set. And I love the fact the boxes are, obviously they were using this as a shelter during the Fourth World War. It's got all boxes of emergency supplies. It's set up as a temporary hospital or refuge.
See, and this is all stuff you could just go get at the junkyard. There's not a lot of money in the set design.
No, but they make it look good. Yeah. And the cheese is out. And I love the fact that, they talk about the last line being misogynistic. He's right in there going, get your kit off. I'm here to entertain you. And
this is misogynistic. You are literally holding this woman at gunpoint and telling her to take your clothes off.
Get your clothes off at gunpoint. Yeah. That was Harlan. This bit was great, But she does quite well in talking him down a little bit. But the cheese was pretty attractive.
Yep.
I have to say. Weird name, Quilla June Holmes. Now, what I couldn't figure out is whether she is actually a relative of Jason Robards' character, possibly even his daughter.
I don't think she is, but I couldn't swear to that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether there was any, or whether she's just another member of the underground vault that they're using for this.
Well, there's a lot of interbreeding going on, it sounds like, so probably could be a relative in some way.
Given the way they reproduce, everybody's probably related to everybody else at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's true. That's why they're so keen to find someone like Vic.
Yeah.
This base, of course, there was a bit of a tricky plan that they had, putting her in here and him having to go down here to find her, given that it was the base of these raiders that would be inhabiting it. So there's every chance that they could all have been killed quite easily and their plan wouldn't work. So that was a little bit of a emergency center number 2 hospital. So so there's a little bit of gunfire, a bit of action. Which is pretty well done. It's not, nobody would compare it to an action movie now, but it's well choreographed. And I think you see Blood at one point picking up a rifle and carrying it back away. So well trained. He's a well-trained dog.
And I like the way, especially this fight plays out, because it's very similar to a real-world firefight where it's very chaotic. Everybody's just kind of figuring out where everything is in the first 30 seconds of okay, we're getting shot at. Where is it coming from? And he takes full advantage of that.
He does, yeah, and he's a pretty canny guy and he's a good shot. I do like this whole section. It looks really good.
Yeah, the
Screamers.
Yeah, quite well. Yeah,
screamers.
How does the dog make the screamer sound? Or blood. He said, "What happened if would you think if some screamers would scare him away?"
Yeah,
it's like that's something off, or does he do that telepathically? Or
I wondered that too. I mean, he can't.
Does he do it or does Vic do it?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think it's Vic.
Because we don't see who does it. We hear the sound, but we don't know who creates it. It's like it's like Obi-Wan with the Krayt Dragon call in the first Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
We don't see him do it.
But clearly, everyone's scared of the screamers, though. Clearly, everybody.
Yeah, when a hardened gang of raiders immediately just all starts looking amongst each other and then runs away, that's a sign that whatever's coming is way worse.
That's right. How am I going to do it? Oh, there's the old
that's the radar, right? That's Daredevil's
sexy radar.
Yeah.
You sure it's clean?
Yeah.
Albert, have I ever lied to you?
Albert, yeah, he's very sarcastic. Because he doesn't really want anything to do with this blood. It's like, what are you wasting your time for?
What I'm wondering is if the telepathy of his scan does other things, because he seems to be able, because in the very beginning of the first scene, he's doing a head count of all of the different bad guys that are around. So that radar stuff is probably not just let's go find a girl. It's anybody around, and he can tell the difference between male, female, hostile, screamer, whatever.
Yeah. That's true, yeah. So one man show says there is an actual screamer. Vic fakes it at first, but it attracts the real one. So that was just a little clip of him getting down into this great set that they've... Davina points out rightly they were afraid of YouTube streamers.
As well they should be.
Yeah. So, anyway, he fights the good fight to protect his conquest. All this just for, but I guess, I mean, it's actually, it's a realistic portrayal, in my opinion, of a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
No rules, right?
That's right. And in this world, apparently the reason there are so few women as opposed to, and there's more men, is that during the war, the men were out fighting or mobilized to go fight, and then the bombs fell on the cities where most of the women still were. So there's less women in proportion to men.
Wow.
That's apparently what happened.
I mean, that's a long way to go to get some peace and quiet for a change, but
That's right. Yeah. Whereas, of course, we all know, and in reality, the women would be on the front lines in 2024.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, women. You're assuming their gender, Brian.
Well, I did assume their gender. That's true. And I noticed that Vic is intent on finding either women or people who represent as women. So he doesn't make a distinction.
Got a one-track mind. Food, women, food, women.
Yep. So she starts to, they hole up in this place, and then she works her seductive act on him because he doesn't know this.
Well, he's Don Johnson. He's so good looking, right? He doesn't.
Strictly speaking,
luring him in. Point. Yeah.
Strictly speaking, we don't know that she's not on the level right now.
Yeah, we're not supposed to know she's bait either.
No.
Yeah. He doesn't mind his advances. Actually, she advances here, doesn't? This is the part where a little bit he says the line like, I've never seen a girl like you before. I'm the one who's supposed to be, asking or whatever.
Well, that's right. He's amazed that she's like, "Can we do that again?"
Yeah.
That's one way to get to a man's heart. Pretend that you enjoyed it. I think I got a little clip of this as well, actually.
Long enough for the final missiles to leave their silos on both sides. Let's see. That was in 2006.
This is when he's recounting his history knowledge there to impress her.
Yep.
Except Blood has to prompt him.
Well, blood helps.
She is faking it.
Haven't you ever been down under?
Nope.
Why? It's very nice.
I heard how nice. From a solo-rated one.
Well, it's very nice and you'd like it.
Bullshit.
Oops.
That's very
crude.
Forgot about that bit.
There was some innuendo.
There was nothing. There was nothing to see there.
Not me.
Nope, absolutely not.
Yeah, you might want to be careful because
I didn't mind.
this next scene.
I liked it.
I cut it there, but yeah.
Okay.
She certainly knows how to get to the heart of his bottom, or the bottom of his heart. Yeah. But there is interesting information there, because they start she talks about Down Under, and it sounds like there's more than one vault, if you want to call them that. Not just one. There's multiples, and he knew somebody that went down one once. Can't be the same one. There has to be more than one, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of vaults. So
Well, it makes sense. Yeah, they would, we prepare if there's war that long. It was a 34-year war, whatever they said.
Yeah,
it makes sense. You'd have all kinds of fallout shelters in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah,
that was a huge deal. I knew some people that had fallout. Built bomb shelters. You could buy them, and obviously you still can, but it was big. It was a much bigger deal back then in terms of. One of the people I knew, they had a periscope. They bought a periscope that could go up from their bomb shelter, so they could see what was happening. Is it all clear?
Because that's right. Up periscope. So as we can see, it was really about Australia all along. Maybe when she said, "Have you ever been down under?" she was just referring to his sexual practices. I don't know.
But she said it was wonderful and that he would enjoy it.
Yeah. However, she makes her escape. The cheese flees. Yeah, some of the guys glowed too. But yeah, so the trap is well baited now. And he's going to have to go in there. Oh, yes, this is an interesting bit, though. So that would be one of the screamers, I guess, they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like they're from Boston.
So between the two, would you prefer Miss Benson here, or Benton, or Jenny Augeter from Logan's Run?
I think on balance, I'd take Jenny.
Yeah, Jenny for me.
It's a tough choice, but yeah.
It's a tough choice. Can we not have both?
Yeah.
Why are you shutting your options down?
Not after the end of this movie.
So anyway, the cheese is baited. She's made her escape by bonking him in the head. Blood's looking pretty bloody. And he doesn't want him to go to this vault. He does not want. Yeah, what's a putz? Is that something bad? What's a putz? And he isn't thinking clearly. Because he wants more of that. Yeah. Indeed. Over the hill. They reference over the hill a lot and going over the hill. And I don't know whether it is the reference to what it is. It specifically a reference to something, or was just this mythical place they think where everything is better.
It could be kind of like, okay, so in Red Dawn, you had Colorado where the kids were, all of that was behind enemy lines, and then there was Free America, right? It was another section of the United States that was unoccupied still. It's possible that Over the Hill could be a reference. You go over the mountains. Maybe there's a radiation free zone that didn't get destroyed in the war because there wasn't anything there to target.
Yeah.
You know, like the middle of Wyoming or something. You know, there's all of this free range land that wasn't developed to begin with, that maybe civilization, the civilization of survivors have made it over that direction, and we just go over the hill and we're just right there. So,
and that would fit with where this is too, because in Phoenix, the hill they'd be talking about would be the Rockies.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Although I'd often thought it was maybe like a reference to like a fantasy fairy tale place where everything was still wonderful and pre-war.
It could be that too.
Yeah, like Over the Rainbow or Over the Hills and Far Away or something.
I mean, after a nuclear apocalypse, Kansas starts to look pretty nice.
Right. That's a stretch.
I think one man shows right. Why doesn't Vic give Blood's advice more weight? Why is he? I know he's horny, but he's just too horny. Like Blood's not. He's the smart one of the pair here. You know, you think he would listen to him a little bit more. But now we see the vault and the entrance to the vault, and things start to get really weird. This is him getting in. Well, this is where he really leaves Blood behind, you know?
We've been together a long time, good and bad, but this could be the worst. I'm scared. I'm scared you won't come back and I'll have to find some rover to take me on. And you know, most rovers are in packs now, and I'm
you left
not
a
that
card
young
behind.
anymore. And I'll miss you, baby.
You know that door opening? That sound, it sounded to me like a photon torpedo firing. And
it kind of did. Probably the same sound effect.
Yeah, it's a Star Trek sound effect.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, poor Blood. He's like practically begging, "Don't leave me on my own."
I'll really miss you.
Well, I'll try to get back as quick as I can. Will you wait?
For a while, then over the hill.
Do you expect Blood to be dead by the time he gets back?
You do, and you've no guarantee. He has no guarantee he's going to get back or how long. And I mean, it's not like he doesn't. He should know by now that she's betrayed him, or just, yeah.
When he says, "Yeah, can't you put all this together?" Like the dog is so smart. He's like, wasn't this too easy? It was
Very
too easy
convenient.
to find. Yeah. So all the setups there. So
I
mean,
have
the
to
story
wonder,
doesn't put together.
maybe because there's one point in early on in the film where they talk about how hungry they are, and the dialogue basically says, I'll feed you, but you've got to find me a girl. What if his ability is tied to that somehow?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's pure speculation on my part. There's nothing in the film that would indicate that one way or the other, but that would explain sometimes why maybe Blood's not quite as good as he otherwise would be sometimes.
But that sounds much more like a transactional relationship than a friendship, which is kind of weird given that they're supposed to be really close and good friends. I mean, well, we assume that because we assume they've been through all this stuff together. Maybe it was more transactional. I don't know.
And this scene really kind of makes you hate Vic in a lot of ways.
No, it does.
So he's leaving his friend behind to chase this girl who clearly betrayed him. And Blood is weak. Like you say, I was fully expecting him to be dead by the time they got back.
He's not in good shape.
His hurt, his broken leg, yeah.
So they use the same power station that they filmed a lot of 70s sci-fi in.
Yep.
To go through all this stuff. And then he gets to, and this is when things get really weird, when he gets down under to Topeka.
Stardust weird.
So okay, so you talk about there's probably more than one vault.
Yeah.
And you have the state of Topeka underneath Phoenix.
Yeah.
The geography kind of twists your brain a little bit, because either Phoenix was much bigger, or the state of Topeka is a very, very large underground vault, because Phoenix and Topeka are not too close to each other.
Could be a large, extensive series of vaults connected, and they're all under that one banner, that one name.
Maybe.
Although we only really see this one, and they seem pretty set on their own ways, not like they've interacted with others much.
I want to stay here.
This twisted 50s Americana parody they're maintaining in this vault.
I know, it looks like Trouble in River City to me. I'm out of there.
That and the audio in this section of the movie, I don't know if it's the version that got uploaded to archive that I was watching, but the audio here was absolutely god awful. Where you had that band playing super loud and a loudspeaker on top of that, plus whatever else is going on in the scene. It was just
it reminded me of the movie Nashville.
Yes.
With all of these different layers of everything happening all at once. You couldn't keep track of any of it. It's horrendous.
It's disorienting and just kind of creepy in a way then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've got that subliminal speaker going in the background. I guess brainwash, or it's not subliminal. It's out there, but it's always telling you what to do.
And dungarees, of course.
I tried to put the subtitles on to figure out what was happening.
What I find interesting, though, when they say Year of Our Lord 103.
Yeah.
Right? 103. So they're counting 103 years since what? So 2024 minus 103 is what?
Yeah, it's
1921.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like they've created some kind of ye olde worldy Americana that they're trying to, from the 30s or something, that they're trying to maintain. They've got the faces with the
I couldn't
makeup.
figure out the faces. Why in the world they would do something like that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense with anything else in the film.
I mean, I could understand it if they were all suffering from radiation poisoning and their skin was all screwed up, but that doesn't appear to be the case. I mean, Quilla's in pretty good shape.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an odd choice.
Yeah, but it works. It's effective, other than for what Pope was saying about the difficult to listen to. It's very effective in being unsettling. And because the dark sky, there's no sun, so it's a dark, dark sky. Now there's women and there's food, but it's just creepy, and I think they really did that very well. Yeah, there's the 103. Yeah.
The most unrealistic thing out of all of this is the fact that Barbershop Quartet would survive a World War III.
That's right. Or maybe in Family Guy they would.
Yeah.
But yeah, Davina mentioned Bioshock, and I hadn't thought of that before, but there's a Bioshock feeling to some of this.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good point, Davina.
Yeah.
That's a creepy game, Bioshock.
This is Bioshock. Upstairs is Fallout,
Yeah, kind of. In terms, really in the almost surrealistic way this is shot and written. Yeah, it's very Bioshock in that there is civilization down here, but it's out there.
Yeah. And now we're introduced to the committee, which appears to be just the three of them.
Right, yeah.
And they're busy and sitting in this old church or wherever it is, making decisions, like the couple that they send to the farm. Everyone that transgresses is sent to the farm, and its clear implication is they're not coming back because they say, oh, well, we'll tell them that it was a heart attack this time, or we'll say it was whatever. So I'm wondering if the farm they're turned into nutrients for the farm.
It could be.
Yeah, because it's pretty final, and it doesn't sound like they're going to be doing the farming, but they've all these rules.
Or the sand way to the cornfield, right, from that Twilight Zone episode, right? That's,
yeah,
not
that's
the same
right.
thing.
It's like that. I mean, this
that's going to evoke what it evokes, yeah. And then later on, you know, some people get sent away, and then I guess it turns out then the you know, the big dude is a robot. Actually, you find out.
Which you don't really realize at first, but he's a robot. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, so you can't fight.
I mentioned Nashville earlier from Robert Altman. They came out the same year.
Okay, so they had the same sound design.
Yeah, I mean, all of the layers of this thing. I get what he's doing with it. You know, the chaotic of it and all of this stuff is going on as a constant thing, but there's no flow. It's all just kind of there, and you don't get. I'm saying, I'm listening to this stuff as okay, all of this stuff that's going on in the loudspeakers. How much of that do we need for everything else that's going on, or do we? And I'm fighting the band to try to listen to the loudspeaker stuff, just in case there's information there that I need to understand what's going on.
Occasionally there is, because it does mention warning, red warning, go here, orange warning, go there, whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of the music, in a way, like that, since it's pretty much around constantly in the background, it almost seems like a form of psychological warfare.
Yes.
Yeah. They're brainwashing. They're just assaulting the senses all the time. It's a never-ending twisted circus going on.
It's social media.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, this is where we find out that what Quilla's really been up to and why she was the cheese.
Quilla, June, honey. Oh, come to Papa. Sure is pleasing to see you back home again. Mm-hmm.
It could be your dad.
Trouble, huh? Everything went all
well,
right.
He's come to Papa. It's kind of.
Oh, that's fine. Sure did yourself proud, Missy.
Unless it's a paternalistic attitude.
Yeah. That'll be put on the committee right away, like we talked about.
Don't you worry about it, little girl. As soon as there's an opening.
Mr. Craddock, I would prefer not to wait.
I don't think it is.
After all, I did bring Vic down here exactly like you told me to.
Now you just be patient.
So she wants power.
Have fun with young folks your own age. Think about getting married, making a home. Your time will come.
I'd rather be just like you, Miss Smith, and not wait.
Don't you worry, little girl.
I don't see why you just...
That'll be all.
Yeah, so her scheme was to do what they wanted to get Vic so she could get on the committee and be one of the powerful ones. That's what it was all about. And welcome, John. How are you, buddy?
Doing good.
Good to see you.
So it kind of makes me think. Tell me if we've heard this story before, right? You have a social political movement. And you have people that decide that they're going to go along and they scheme to go along with the status quo in order to make themselves powerful. And they end up being betrayed by the very system they're trying to manipulate.
Yes.
Where have we heard this story before? It's like, wait,
familiar.
It is kind of 2024, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 2024. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and they're using the same authoritarian rule with twisted motivations and paternalism that we're seeing all the time. So it's like all of these movies. They were meant to be cautionary, but they're somewhat used as a guidebook.
Yeah.
Like Colossus is used as a guidebook for some stuff like AI, and now this is some guidebook stuff in here about how you could control society to mold it in your view, you know. So
they haven't quite got it right yet, but this time we'll make sure that it works.
Yeah.
It just never was properly tried before.
That's right. That's right. You have to stick the fork in the outlet this way.
That's right. But yeah, so she's so because they don't like her being uppity and imposing, so they're pretty close to sending her to the farm. And here she is with her revolutionary plotters that she has a little group of malcontents.
And also struck me as kind of the orbiters around a pretty girl that don't stand a chance and know it, but will hang around just in case anyway.
Yeah.
Hi to Dave Bob. Yes, so we found out pretty soon that there are fertility issues down here. Lou could have been Quilla June's father, stepfather. The relationship is pretty murky. And there's something about her mother being from Oklahoma that's mentioned at some point, yeah.
Yeah, when Vic first meets her, she says that her parents are from Oklahoma because he comments on her name, Quilla June. That's a weird name. She's like, not if you're from Oklahoma, it's not.
That's right, yeah. But this world that they're trying to preserve, it's got a lot of decay in it. Clearly, the radiation and other things have had an impact, and it's not exactly a fertile, growing society in many ways. It's a decaying society, a parody of a society. This is where they're checking them over.
Well, it's really kind of a powerful message too. And up top, you have the people who are living through it, just trying to survive it by however means they can. And then down here, you have people who are kind of protected and insulated from the event that ended it all.
Yeah.
Trying to mimic this dying remnant of what was the old world or their idealistic version of it.
That's right.
And slowly watching it destroy itself.
Well, it's interesting too that a lot of this remnant is very reminiscent of the 1950s. It's almost like they stunted right there and never kept developing past.
And I was always wondering where that focus on, the late 50s, early 60s aesthetic came from in Fallout. I'm guaranteeing it's here.
I think so. And I don't know whether that was a decision of the author, Harold Ellison, or whether it was in the world of this movie, whether it was the decision of the committee that they wished to represent this as the ideal society, that period. So they've regressed everything to that, and it's now a parody of that. But that's what they want.
Is it a possibility that this is we're going to pick the most recent era in history that's pre-Cold War?
Yes, that's a good point.
In terms of the story, not necessarily within this universe, but Ellison's story, and just from the outside production looking into it, if we hit because the 50s, pre-Korea, what we talked about it earlier, that was the beginning of the Cold War in earnest. And you get into that, Leave It to Beaver, era of entertainment and that kind of thing. That's kind of a fulcrum, a linchpin moment when life was innocent in the early 50s, and then Cold War, and you had Korea and Vietnam. It just never got good after that because
the rules seemed simpler.
Watts riots, all of that stuff.
It's a good point. I think they've tried to create this what they see as the ideal society with the correct rules and influences. But of course, as we discover here, as they reveal to Vic their plan for him, first he gets excited because he thinks, I'm going to get laid a lot here. They need outside fertility.
Like, psych, I came to the right place.
Them up. And then because they and I believe we have some video of this. So what he doesn't realize is he's going to get hooked up to the machine.
Yeah.
You mean you want me to knock up your broad?
I'll sign up for that. Yeah.
He's there. He's like, chew it up.
You talked me into it. Line him up. You first, honey. Take your hands off me.
Robards is great here.
Guide, together we beseech
We have
thee
this
in the way.
This weird marriage ceremony goes on. in front of him as he's on the table.
They may be abundantly enriched with the tokens.
And this is the funny bit when you first see it. He's getting milked.
Oh. At least it wasn't blue.
According to the ordinances and the law.
Thing is, where have they shoved these devices?
Well, I hope Don Johnson got paid extra for this movie.
Yeah. That's I remember watching it and going, that's hilarious the first time I watched it.
It seems kind of odd to me that these things would be happening in the same room. You know? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Why would they have to do that? Exactly. I mean, there's this ceremony of in front of where they're going to get the juice from. That wouldn't need to be done at all. They could just stick him in a lab room somewhere. But I guess
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, they've created all these rituals as part of the whole thing.
Well, and this is also a development moment, a character development moment for Vic's arc, because where did we meet him at the very beginning? He's wanting to find a girl. He's a horn dog, right? Now he gets what he wants, sort of, but it's one of these be careful what you wish for things, because it's it's like what Spock said in Star Trek: having is not always, having could be better than wanting, or having is not always as good as wanting. And he's got these aspirations. He's I want to find girl after girl after girl. Well, here you go, but it's not going to be like you expected. And there's kind of a little bit of a Twilight Zone twist here. Yeah, you're going to get what you want, but not the way you think.
Yeah, it's very much a Faustian bargain where they're giving him everything he ever dreamed of in the way he never wanted it.
Yeah.
Okay, the YouTube stream has been blocked temporarily because of the video clips.
Which is hilarious considering this movie's on YouTube.
Well, exactly. So don't worry, we'll keep going. It'll come back in a few seconds.
You can't watch 20-second clips of the movie, but you can watch the whole thing.
You can watch the whole damn thing. And I thought I was spacing them out quite well as well. That one wasn't even one of the longest. So
I don't think they like the milking scene.
No, that's true as well.
So over in Rumble, of course, you're still getting the full experience of the show.
And that scene in the little meeting hall there where he's talking to the committee, I love the look on Rothbard's face where he just has that smile that doesn't go all the way up to his eyes of like, this idiot has no idea what we're about to do to him.
So while we're waiting for the YouTube side to come back, John, what's your experience with this movie? When did you first see it?
Honestly, I don't remember when. It was a video rental back in the day. It was one of those pick up at the video store that, this looks interesting. And, it's post-apocalyptic, and I'm going to watch anything post-apocalyptic. So,
yeah, me too. I watched it in VHS first time. I didn't see it. I've never seen it in the cinema, ever. I mean, I'm sure it gets shown occasionally in retro places, but it was a VHS experience for sure. What is this weird thing? I remember reading the novella. What is this?
And why are certain parts of this tape really clear?
That's right.
I do remember I rented this with Cherry 2000.
Oh, Cherry 2000. There's another thin tape for you. Another rewatchable movie. It's weird that they stopped this. Given that, as One Man Show said, he's had the full movie on his channel for 4 years. But I guess 30 seconds is too much. Anyway, we're back on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. We're still obviously live over in Rumble. Anyway, and we're sorry, Pope. I didn't mean to do that. My apologies.
Story.
So anyway, Quilla has decided that she's not going to get their way. She wants to foment a revolution using Vic, once again using Vic for her purposes. The committee get onto this, and it's weird how they respond by setting up a few chairs in the park and have a meeting instead of. They do send Michael the robot out. That's when we find out he's a robot, of course. The committee is really weird with the way they handle things, and the fact they've only got one robot for security.
They get into the warehouse, right? So
yeah, that's right. I love that line. Get another Michael, and this time make sure they wipe the smile off his face or whatever.
Right. Because I guess no one else has weapons, right? So only they're able to get Johnson Vic is able to grab some weapons, but or maybe no one fights back. Everyone's just too terrified. But I was wondering why that guy was so strong. He's just killing people left and right, and then you see that he's Yul Brenner, quote unquote killer robot.
Yeah. It's funny. Get another Michael from the warehouse and wipe the smile. This time, wipe the grin off his face.
And how stupid was the girl to think that she could replace one of the three on the committee? It's like they're not going to give up their spot.
No, and there's only 3 of them, so there ain't room for 4. But yeah, they come out to this open spot to do this. I mean, they must know that Vic's armed. He could kill them. I mean, it's
it
weird.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that bit didn't. I guess they just decided to do it because they had the set already and just stick him there. And they seem to just do nothing but business as well, this committee. There's no... they're always in session at the farm immediately. Everyone's going to the farm. So now she's decided, because her revolution has failed, that they have to get out. He has to get her out of here. Again, usurious. She's very usurious, Quilla.
Yeah, but I put you down here just so I could use you, she basically says, a few seconds ago.
Yeah.
And then she realizes that, oops, they just sentenced me to the cornfield, so I better leave now and get out while the getting's good, She doesn't really care about Don John, Vic in any way, shape, or form, Just use
Quilla's picked the most useless revolutionaries as well. They're the real soy boys.
Also have certain modern parallels.
I'm not sure I know this, the game We Happy Few.
I do, and yes, they do have that kind of clownish makeup.
I'm not remember that game.
And it does have a lot of the same beats that the society that this has. The game's basically everybody has to take this drug, if I remember right, that makes them all happy.
Okay.
I wonder if this could also be the inspiration for the phrase clown world.
Well, it is literally a clown world they've created. Yeah.
But they've bought into their own delusion. This society works because it works, and they don't think about the consequences or the implications of just how their society operates. This is just the way it is. This is how it's always.
I also like the fact that over the tannoy they announce recipes, for instance.
Yeah,
it seems a rather inefficient way of doing that, but
well, it's almost like 1984. We're broadcasting a bunch of nonsense stuff. It's that whole demoralization, brainwashing, propaganda. We're just going to overload you with all this nonsense, random stuff.
Yeah.
To the point where you're just not thinking anymore. We're going to turn everybody into drones.
Yeah. Well, in relation to that game, Davina mentions the influence on that game of Brazil. Well, Brazil springs to mind as a movie with that same weird, surreal stuff being pressed on people as this thing, So there's a touch of Brazil. The same concepts that were in Brazil later of, just this is supposed to be ordinary people, but look at the bizarre shit that's being fed to them,
Mm-hmm.
So they've escaped, and he's looking for blood, and we hurtle to the movie's shocking conclusion, which still one of the most celebrated or infamous lines in any movie ending of history, but
tastes great, less filling.
That's right. But yeah, he's now poor blood's in a bad way. He's very hungry, but he waited. He stayed, and there's nowhere nearby that he can get food. Meanwhile, Quillet's still trying to persuade him to ditch blood, and he calls him Tiger a lot. I know which is the actual dog name, but
Yeah, no, it's a really well done scene. I mean, the dog, of course today they do with the dog with CGI, but the dog's, a great stunt performer.
He's a brilliantly trained dog. Yeah, he does a lot of great stuff.
I was reading on IMDb the limp after the dog fight. The limp was accomplished by just wrapping a rubber band around his paw.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we're just gonna tie it up, and that was all there was to it.
So here we are. Someone's at a barbecue. Krilla's strangely absent, and Blood's.
And yet there's a lot of white fabric torn around the entire.
That's right, and Blood's feeling pretty perky, although overfed.
Where did he get the wood for the fire?
That's maybe. No, that's never quite explained, is it? Maybe that's her bones.
No. Yeah.
She picked me to get all wet-brained over.
And I think that entrance to the vault is fairly obvious too. You'd think that looks like it'd be easy to break down, if you had a huge.
And this is a pure Fallout moment of them just busting out laughing after making a bunch of puns at the expense of the woman they just ate.
Well, I don't think Vic necessarily ate her. I'm not sure. Is that made clear? I don't think he did.
He said
he'd rather happy about
that he laughed at the joke. I would think that he probably did because it's his way of getting back at her too.
Yeah, indeed, because he must have realized she was using him the whole time, and she wanted to ditch Blood. So, the final.
Oh hell! It wasn't my fault. She picked me to get all wet brain over.
Well, I'd say she certainly had marvelous judgment, Albert, if not particularly good taste. Particularly good.
And they walk off into the sunset. So there, yes, the infamous line, which as you said, Jason, Harlan Ellison hated that line.
Yeah,
hateful, misogynistic.
I want to say he was okay with it up to a certain point, and then flipped on it.
Yeah,
but he's known to do that. Harlan is known to.
Yeah, he was rather mercurial, and
it's a great way to say it.
Yeah,
yes, jerky doesn't make itself.
It really struck me that this ending, this last scene, really struck me as considerably darker than everything else.
Oh, by the way, I kept that because it says associate producer Tom Connors.
I wonder if that's Tom Connors Sr.
Well, who knows? But, sorry, I interrupted you there, Jason.
No, that's okay. I was just saying that this last scene is particularly dark, as even compared to the rest of the movie. It's it's Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, Night Gallery type of twist that you like. Wait, they did what? But it does kind of go along with the whole we're just going to survive the best we can, whatever way we're able to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember watching it the first time and thinking, wow, I didn't expect that ending.
Yeah.
And thinking it's a great line. It was to me, it's funny. I don't know what Harlan Ellison was upset about. If he thinks that was the only misogynistic thing in the movie, then he was pretending to himself an awful lot.
I think he thought the line wasn't subtle enough. I remember reading somewhere the original novella what the line was, but I don't know if you have it but it was just a little bit left a little bit more to the imagination. I mean, not that you can't figure it out, but his version was you could take it either way, but it's pretty obvious. They're
obvious that they both got the white meat.
Yeah. Although the dog, Blood says, at one point, you haven't eaten a bite, and Don John, Vic's like, I'm not hungry. Yeah. So
I think it was a lovely ending, and there's a lovely Tim McIntyre acoustic guitar playing there, and there's walk off to the sunset. All in all, I think it's I mean, is it the greatest movie ever made? Probably not, but it's certainly one of the ones that's always stuck with me over the years. And given the shoestring budget it was made on, I think it was made extremely well. And a lot of things to say, and a lot of stuff to say about loyalty, morality, and various other topics. So I'm a big fan. I like it.
I have to wonder how well it would have stuck if it had not influenced so many other things. You know, if it was just a one and done deal and it just, you know, it came out and it went away and there, you didn't get Mad Max out of it or Fallout or BioShock or any of the rest of these, how much of a cult classic would it be?
It's a good point. Because those references have kept it alive for sure.
Yeah. And I'm wondering how much it is the other way around as well, as how much, you know, would it have influenced if it wasn't already what it was? Because it obviously stuck in the creators of those things' mind so heavily to the point where it's identifiable, not just like, oh yeah, it's kind of in the same vein. Like there are identifiable things from Mad Max, Fallout, BioShock, We Happy Few, all of it that are like right from it. And this is not like a movie that came out right before most of it. So they would have had to really remember this.
Yeah.
I know that I think those references have kept, I think they've kept it alive as a movie, because I think otherwise, without that, Jason, you're right, I think it would be just another obscure C movie, because it wasn't even a B movie. It was so cheap and it didn't get a wide release. It would have been just one of these oddities that you see from the early 70s. There's a lot of them around, like really cheap indie movies. It would just be another indie movie. Because I don't think the novella alone would be enough to inspire all that other stuff that came after.
No. I think it's a lot like John Carter, where you have the original Barsoom novels from the early 1900s, and those influenced everything else. Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, Star Wars, Dune, Superman. You know, there was a fan-made trailer for when John Carter came out, and it was talking about before all of this, there was John Carter, but it's transactional. It's like Pope was talking about. Would you have one without the other? Would John Carter or Boy and His Dog have lasted as long without all of the stuff that came after it? And when all the stuff came after it, wouldn't be around without that first one.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's great it's great in a number of ways. It's great because it dared to be different, as many movies did in those days. It felt it had something to say. It wanted it to be different. Nothing had quite looked like it before. I really do like the screenplay that L.Q. Jones wrote. I think it's a really tight little movie with a lot of. It's bigger. The movie is way bigger than what went into it, I think. So I like it.
Never would have been made now.
No, you would never see that something made this way now in that like that. If they did, it would be blood spattered gore. Probably would be the thing that would have in it. So
I just found the original ending, or the original words. So it said, "A boy and his dog can be happy sitting out in the woods on a log, but a dog knows his boy can go wrong. Do you know what love is? A boy loves his dog." So that's the original ending to. So it's kind of. I like the movie much better.
I like the movie. Yeah, they milked that movie for all it was worth. The one thing it did puzzle me was he got off that machine pretty easily. You would think there would have been a lot of wiring to
more pain there. And he was walking pretty well for the guy that just had that happen to him.
Yeah.
Would you guys do me a favor and just talk amongst yourselves for a minute? I'll be back very shortly.
Of course.
Oh,
was he's gonna get something special from the archives, or maybe a soundtrack, or
we're going to see his catheter collection.
Catheter collection. Yeah. Yeah, movie
No,
wasn't
there
so.
was something about this movie that stuck out to a lot of, apparently aspiring writers in the 70s and 80s, because it was just like everybody else kind of, I mean, given the budget, probably took one look at it and just went, I don't know if I want to go see that. But a lot of the more interesting people kind of went,
yeah,
either just saw it because they were bored on a Saturday night or whatever, and then it really stuck with you, because this is the kind of movie you're never going to forget once you've seen it. And then
don't forget
really they really just could never get that idea out of their head and kept iterating on it.
Well, and depending on how it was marketed to begin with, I mean, you have the spots, the trailers and stuff that's out there now that show us the dog is telepathic. And that in and of itself is kind of an intriguing thing for our mindset, the people of our affinity group, which would have been much smaller back then before it was mainstream and acceptable to be a nerd or a geek or a fan of any of this stuff. And word of mouth probably is, oh, you've got to go see this. There's a talking dog in it, and because before this, the talking dog was the Shaggy DA over on Disney.
Yeah,
yeah, a little bit different. Yeah,
yeah, a little.
Well, and that's really kind of the hook to get you into the story at first is like, okay, well, it's a guy who lives in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. Okay, well, especially nowadays, like that's kind of a dime a dozen. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, but the dog talks. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see what this has got.
Yeah,
the dog's the brains of the outfit in this one.
Yeah,
you have to forgive me. I had to go and see A Man About a Dog, as they say. So,
I got to scoot out, unfortunately, because I got a meeting at 7:30.
Well, we're certainly going to start wrapping up now anyway. But Mark, thank you for being here, buddy. Is there anything you would like to promote on your way out?
Sure. Well, yep. Check me out on Sunday Night Geekery, 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night. And thank you for joining this yesterday, 70s. And I'll be on Toxic Tuesday, of course, always on that show, hanging out, reviewing some extremely toxic films. And I think we should, not that soon because you just did that here, but I think this should be a movie that we look at on Toxic Tuesday, possibly. And what's our movie? Oh, our movie this week is a very safe movie that definitely could get made today. It's Tropic Thunder, so nothing.
That's right. Nothing controversial in there at all.
Be perfectly safe in that
movie. You guys saw what Billy D. Williams and David Harewood both have said recently. Billy D. Williams was on with Bill Maher. And he basically said, well, if they want to do blackface, that's fine. And then David Harewood, who played Martian Manhunter and Supergirl, he also came out and said,
"Oh, he did, yeah.
If you're gonna do blackface, that's fine. Do it well, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. It's called acting." Yeah. And I'm like, this would not have been reported on 5 years ago.
If you do it well enough, you can become a prime minister. I mean, it's
not a particularly good one, but a prime minister nonetheless.
Hail Snowdub, good to see you, buddy. Hey, so yeah, thanks, Mark, for being here.
It was fun hanging out with you guys, and go watch this movie if you haven't seen it. It's free on the tubes, right? So
exactly, yeah. One Man Show's got it on his channel, so go to find his channel and watch it. Thanks, buddy.
All right, take care. Catch you soon.
Good to see you, Mark. Later. Yep. So. Let's start. Let's give everyone a chance to plug their stuff. I should go blackface. This is me in blackface.
Sheepface.
Sheepface. So yeah, let's start with you, Jason, my friend. Thank you for being here as the special guest. I have special panelists, and you're my special guest. So.
That's only because I have more than one monitor. I know they are.
You do. You actually mission ground control to Major Tom.
That's right.
Is going on there. I did have. I'm pretty sure I had an. Well, here it is. There's a really nice image of you, and all your links.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
And so there's a lot of them, and you'll see those in the About section on SciFi4Me TV channel. But I also have some kind of textual stuff, which I'm going to hit now. There we go. So you can talk while that's showing. Tell us what you're up to and where we can find you, sir.
Well, SciFi4Me TV, we do broadcast live to YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. The time of day is 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Sometimes we go an hour, sometimes we go 3, depending on what it is. And we are one of the only shows, and we talked about this last night on Culture Show. We are one of the only channels out there in our sphere that does an open line every now and again, so people can actually call in. And I take the risk and let people take control of the show. We have open line Friday, and sometimes we'll do an open line third hour.
Scary.
Tomorrow I'm going to have Dan Danford. He's an investment guy, and we're going to be talking about the Paramount earnings call that happened today. So, and I'm hearing stuff about Star Trek that makes me think that Star Trek is absolutely, without a doubt, dead now.
Yeah, you were saying that on Twitter. So
yeah, bad stuff. If it's true, if it's true, Star Trek is absolutely dead.
And if Star Trek's gone, Paramount's got to be gone soon after. That's their flagship.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound encouraging, but I guess we'll hear all about it on your show tomorrow.
Tune in tomorrow.
Tomorrow. But thank you for being here, buddy.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, no, let's do it again. And also, thank you for being able to pop in, John. I know it's late. I know you have to work, unfortunately, with the timing of this show these days, but I always appreciate it when you can make it, mate. So what are you up to these days?
Well, I've got my show on Fridays on Pop Culture Minefield, where I'm playing The Walking Dead, the Telltale series from the beginning. And I'm going to go through the whole thing. So
cool. Nice. Not a game I've ever played, but I have seen lots of clips and footage of it over the years. So it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, it's that's at 8 p.m. Central. So
alrighty. Good. Well, go check John out on both Das Wolfen and on Pop Culture Minefield, where we often stream together, my friend. Look forward to you being here for future shows too. If maybe I'll adjust it. Maybe I could push the timing back half an hour. Might help you. I was thinking about that, so we'll see. But thanks for being here, buddy, and also thank you to my close friend and collaborator, Pope Metallicus.
Thanks for having me, man.
What are you up to, buddy?
Well, I have a weekly show at 11 p.m. Eastern on Saturday nights over on Rumble called Pope's Midnight Mass, where I create a playlist throughout the week of either stuff I'm listening to. If I release an episode that week, usually stuff that of the band that I've been covering that week will be in the playlist. And then just do a little 2-hour radio show with you guys. And sometimes longer if we're having fun with it and I can stay up that late.
The beauty of Rumble, absolutely. We can play music and do stuff and talk about stuff.
And I'll have a new episode coming out tomorrow for Rock and Roll Religion on Lord of the Lost with Riding Raven. Interesting little god band. So
nice, good stuff, mate. And speaking of metal, you and I were talking about it. Next week's show, next Monday on this channel, we will be doing back to music, and we're going to be doing a show celebrating the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yes.
Or Newabum, as it's called. I can never pronounce that acronym. Newabum. So we're going to delve into the new wave of British heavy metal, subject we've spoken about in other shows many times. But let's do it here next week. So that should be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to that. And as for me, later on tonight, you will see me on Comics Division. Monday Night Meltdown, Toxic Tuesday tomorrow night, and then a bunch of other stuff later in the week. It's far too early to talk about. So, but I would like to thank everyone in the chat today. You've made a happy man very old. You've all survived the dystopian hell that was this show. And the stars are still alive, but tonight we'll see whether or not they claw the series back to even or not. But yeah, thanks everyone on Rumble for watching. Thanks everyone on YouTube for chatting. You've been simply marvelous as usual. Absolutely love it. Your support. That's what we do it for, so we can all do this shit together. So thanks for being here and supporting the channel and supporting me and this show. And have a great day. try to avoid any strange-looking women in caves or underground bunkers. And until next time, stay well and keep on rocking. See y'all. And it's at this point we have to figure out whether the show has actually ended or not. I think we might still be here.
Yeah.
We are in fact still live.
Let's try it.